Good morning, world. This is Cedric of Cedric and Brian, and welcome to another episode. By now, I'm sure most of you have heard about the clash between sports journalist Stephen A. Smith and Lakers forward LeBron James. And today's topic is going to be nepotism. Is what happened nepotism, or did Bronny James get a fair shot at making the Lakers franchise? Stay tuned. I'm Cedric, and this is Cedric and Brian. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And before we get into our topic today, a few housekeeping notes. Brian's going to put something on the screen here. Don't know if it's going to be to this side or this side, but he's going to put up a Cash App and a Venmo. We have a goal, a huge goal of hitting 100,000 subscribers, and we can't do it without your help. So we need you to subscribe. We need you to comment. We need you to drive our channel however you can so we can get to that goal. Now, we always get this question. Do I have to give money? You do not. We live in America, the greatest country on earth. You can do whatever you feel like. We're just saying we would appreciate it if you did. So on this particular channel, and I'm pretty excited about it because we are growing, we dive into culture, politics, things that are going on in the world, maybe new books, and we also do music reactions. So those of you who are coming to this channel, like I said last time, and expecting a music reaction, and you're not getting it, don't fret. We are still going to do that because we found that gave us a lot of traction as well. And do not miss out on the incredible third channel that we have going, and that's called Tennessee Time. And I'm sure Brian will put that link in the description box below. And at Tennessee Time, you get to follow Brian and his entire family as they made the migration from California all the way to beautiful Tennessee. They're having a great time there, great time. But the thing I want to talk about today is the clash between Stephen A. Smith, who works for ESPN and has his own podcast now, and Lakers forward LeBron James. And if you haven't heard about what happened last week in NBA action, the Lakers traveled to New York to take on the vaunted New York Knicks, and it was a great game. But between the third and fourth quarters of that game, LeBron James got up from the bench, walked over Stephen A. Smith, which can be pretty intimidating when someone 6'9" is standing above you, and he said some words to it. For those of you who can't read lips, this is what LeBron said to Stephen A. Smith. He said, "I'm going to tell you one time, bro, keep my son out of this sugar honey iced tea, bro." Sugar honey iced tea. You guys can figure it out. That was a dad. He came to Stephen A. Smith, confronted him during the midst of the game, and said, "Well, I don't care what you say on your channel. I don't care what sports personalities you talk about. Leave my son out of it." Seems I heard that someplace before where a certain actor walked up and slapped Chris Rock and said, "Keep my wife's name out of your mouth." But there's some similarities there. Stephen A. Smith took it in stride, and he went on to say this. "That wasn't a basketball player confronting me. That was a parent. That was a father," Smith continued. "And I can't sit here and be angry or feel slighted by LeBron in any way in this regard. By all accounts, he's obviously a wonderful family man and wonderful father who cares very deeply about his son. And based on some of the comments he had heard, or shall I say, I think he thought he heard, he clearly took exception to some of the things that he heard me say, and he confronted me about it." He went on to say, "I have nothing but the best wishes for Bronny James. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he flourishes into an NBA star." But in the same breath, in the time we were talking about him, he was percolating to such a degree that Bronny James stories had gone viral. Tough story. Now, as a journalist, and I've seen these stories, even though I don't watch sports as much as I used to, I've watched a few of these stories, and I've heard Stephen A. Smith say nothing but glowing comments about Bronny James. And to Stephen A. Smith's credit, he has always put the blame on his father, LeBron James. Because it was LeBron James who at the time played for the Lakers, and when his son matriculated from Sierra Canyon High School into USC, the poor kid, I believe it was his freshman year at USC, had a heart attack. I mean, if you're a parent and a child that age has a heart attack or a heart issue, it scares you. And that really messed up his first season at USC playing basketball, which is secondary compared to his health. But after that second year, I believe, and check me if I'm wrong, he decided to enter into the NBA draft. And if you go back and look at his stats, they didn't say stellar athlete, because USC is not a blue blood college like a Kentucky or a Duke or North Carolina, where you get blue chip basketball players coming out that NBA scouts are just drooling over to take. USC it's a football school. So, but LeBron James came out anyway, and LeBron James and his agent, I forget his name, Rich Paul, they told all the other NBA franchises, do not, I repeat, do not take Bronny James in the draft, because if you do, he will go back on his word and he will go to Europe or China or someplace and play overseas. We want the Lakers to take him, and I believe at the time it was the 55th pick. I don't care, any NBA draft, the 55th player in any draft, you're not expecting a lot from. But this is all marketing. LeBron James wanted to play with his son. I thought it was pretty cool. Think about the Griffeys, the father and the son, who played baseball together. The only difference with that is that the younger, Ken Griffey Jr., was a much better player than his father. Now it's going to be very hard for Brian James to surpass his dad, who many will say is the best player who's ever played in the history of the game. And some others will say he's up there with Michael Jordan. But most people say he's in the top 5 history-wise of players in the NBA. That is a hard footstep to follow. It's going to be super hard. But it was a good marketing tool, because along with winning championships, most sports teams know that they need to create revenue. And what an incredible story to have a father and son playing together on the same team. But as things panned out, I found that Bronny James wasn't really cut out to play against NBA talent, against bigger, stronger, faster men who are playing not just for fun and games, but to put food on their table. Bronny James, I don't think he's really worried about putting food on his table. His dad has done very well, not only in the NBA, but in the business world. So what they did was, instead of letting him play in the NBA where he tried it, faltered a little bit, they put him in the G League. Now, for those of you who don't know, the G League in basketball is very similar to the minor league in baseball, where players who just aren't really ready for the big league can go down to a lesser league against lesser talent and hone their skills and hone their talents and hopefully one day be ready. Now, from what I understand, Bronny James has been putting in big work in the G League, like the 20-point games, the assists, the confidence. But every time he comes into an NBA game, it's just not there yet. He's not ready. And there's nothing wrong with that. But because this microscope is on him, because LeBron James said, pick my son. And he was even alluding to the fact that if you don't pick my son, Lakers, and another team does play him, if he doesn't go play overseas, there's a chance I'll go to the team that does pick him up. What do you do when you're the Lakers? Well, you're not only one of history's greatest franchises as far as winning championships, but also from a marketing standpoint, the NBA needs the Lakers and the Celtics to do well to draw attention. The same way that baseball needs the Yankees and the Dodgers to do well, to draw revenue and to draw eyes to the TV screen and make money. Thing that really bugs me is the way LeBron James approached Stephen A. Smith. Because, again, like I said earlier, Stephen A. Smith said nothing wrong about Bronny James. He called it the way he saw it. And in short, he basically said he's not ready for this league yet. Does that mean he'll never be ready? Absolutely not. But LeBron James didn't take it that way. So if you think about it, I'm going to name a few players that have had to go through some hard times, and they pushed through it. Now, growing up in Los Angeles, I had the privilege of sitting sitting in the arena. I couldn't afford courtside seats, and watching the incredible Lakers of the 1980s featuring Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, the slicked-haired, well-dressed Pat Riley as coach, and of course, people who called the most incredible point guard that ever played the game, Magic Johnson. And speaking of Magic Johnson, he chimed in on this conversation, and here's what Magic Johnson had to say. He said, "If I'm Bronny, I would tell my dad, just let me play in the G League all season so that I can develop. He needs playing time. He doesn't need to be sitting on the Laker bench and not playing. That's not a knock against him. He's just not ready." And again, this is coming from someone who many consider the greatest point guard and probably the greatest Laker who has ever played, saying, let Bronny be Bronny. Maybe he's just not ready yet, and that's not a bad thing. In 1984, the Lakers played the Celtics in everyone looked forward to this matchup. Finally, the Lakers and the Celtics, the NBA's two glamour franchises, were going to go head-to-head. And in the sixth game, I believe, out of 7, Magic made not one, but 2 critical errors, which changed how people perceived him. And he went from having the nickname of Magic Johnson to people calling him Tragic Johnson. Now, I'm sure that hurt his dad and his mom and his family and close friends, but he had to go through that. And the sports journalists weren't wrong. He made a terrible mistake, especially for a person who's in charge of handling the basketball most of the time. Fast forward to 1997, and you guys all know him, the late, great Kobe Bryant. As a rookie, he shot not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 air balls in Game 6 in a playoff series against the Utah Jazz. Terrible. I mean, how do you come back from that? To shoot 4 air balls in the playoffs, which could have propelled your team further along, and you're trusted with taking those shots, and not only do you not draw a rim, you don't hit anything. And as the story goes, the Lakers flew back to L.A. that night, arrived about 3 a.m., and Kobe, having the dogged determination and the work ethic that we all came to know that he had, went to the gym, and the story goes, he stayed there all day shooting 3-pointers. I don't tell you how his career turned out. Don't tell you how Magic Johnson's career turned out. Those guys put in the work, and they became not only Laker legends, but NBA legends as a whole. I'm not going to go into what Steph Curry has done because people call him the greatest shooter of all time. But when he was coming out of high school, he was so small and diminutive that none of the bigger blue blood schools wanted to pick him up. The Dukes, the North Carolinas. So he had to settle for a scholarship at small Davidson University. And he kept working and kept applying himself and kept getting better and kept getting stronger. And today, people will say that he might be the face of the franchise. And some people are saying he may be one of the GOATs, one of the greatest of all time. Now, will Brian James ever get to that level? We don't know. But he needs to work on that. So the takeaway that I want to take from this is that, was the Lakers taking Bronny James a mistake? I don't think so. I think it was a mistake that they did it for the wrong reasons. They were pushed into doing it by LeBron James. He basically said, take my son or else. That's not the way to run a business. And that's one thing that I've had a problem with the NBA lately, is that back when the late, great David Stern was running things, he ran things with an iron fist. He let the players be the players, but he made the decisions. And he wouldn't let the inmates run the asylum. After he handed things over to Adam Silver kind of flipped things and kind of gave more leeway to the players. The players made the decision to how things are going. And that's what's ruined the NBA, in my opinion. So Bronny has a few decisions he can make. He can stay in the G League, where if my resources are correct, you can make about $40,000 to $50,000. Most kids who grow up playing basketball don't have a dream of playing basketball making $40,000 to $50,000. They have bigger dreams. But Bronny being he makes about $500,000, I believe, because he's what's called a two-way player. Because he was drafted by an NBA franchise, the Lakers, and he plays in the G League, he may make somewhere around $500,000. Does he need the money? Absolutely not, because I think his dad is on the way to billionaire status with all his outside interests in business outside of the NBA. Or he can go play in China, or some other another place in Europe, where he can make $1 to $2 million. Now, is that a failure? Absolutely not, because trust me, if I had an opportunity, if some team came to me and said, hey, we need a 57-year-old point guard who can't jump and is in danger of rupturing his Achilles tendon, I would jump on that in a heartbeat. But young kids growing up playing basketball, the NBA is always the plateau that you're striving for. And there are so many players who decided, you know what, I'm going to play in the G League. I'm going to play overseas. I'm going to play in China. I'm going to play in Europe. And you can make a very good living without playing in the NBA. So I hope he does whatever is right for him. And I hope he can sit down with his dad one day and say, Dad, you know what? The NBA was your dream. It wasn't my dream. And I don't know what their conversation is like. I'm just making this up. But I hope he's not one of those kids where LeBron said, I played basketball, you're playing basketball. I don't know if this is even his dream. And if it isn't, I hope he can have a very honest conversation with his father and said, Dad, you know what? I'll go play overseas, tear it up, make a couple $1 million. But the NBA thing, it's just not my jam. And so you have to ask yourself, if LeBron is going to continue pushing his son into the NBA, then he's got to learn a few things. He's got to learn to let Bronny take on the praise, the adulation, almost what I call the hero worship, which is pretty sad. And he's also got to let him take on the criticism. He's got to stand back and say, son, yeah, you got to take it. Just like Magic Johnson did, just like Kobe Bryant did, just like Steph Curry did, and like so many other professional athletes in basketball and baseball and hockey, they had to take their knocks before they got to reach the players that they are. So what do you guys think? Was LeBron James right in confronting Stephen A. Smith in the way he did? Right in the middle of the game, right there in front of everybody, and said, hey, keep my son's out of your and mouth. And what would you have done if your child was in that situation? I know we all have parents that maybe play youth sports, and sometimes we have those dads especially who kind of live vicariously through their kids on the sidelines, ranting and raving and screaming. And sometimes that blows the kids out of the water, and they're like, you know what? I don't want to do this. Dad, this is for you. It's not for me. Get to the comment section. Let us know what you think. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell, and continue sharing our channel with everyone you know from California to Tennessee. Until next time, I'm Cedric, and we'll see you later.